Hello everyone, this is Grandmaster Ankit Rajpara here. A warm welcome to all of you to the special collaboration between Chess Neurons and ChessBase India. This is the third episode of the Strategic Mastery series. In every episode, I'll be explaining a few positional puzzles. The main objective of this series is to help you all in improving your positional understanding. So now, let's start with the first position for today's video. It's a game between Indian star Praggnanandhaa versus French star Firouzja from Norway Chess 2024. So, in the Norway Chess tournament, the format was slightly different. So, they played a classical game first, and if it ended in a draw, then there would be an Armageddon game. So, those who don't know what is an Armageddon format, so in that format, white gets more starting time than black, but white has to win. So in case the draw happens, black gets the win. So it's more thrilling, and this game is in fact from the Armageddon. So the classical game between Praggnanandhaa and Firouzja was a draw. So they played an Armageddon game, and this is the position that they reached. Now, if you want to attempt this position, then you can pause this video here and then try to guess what Praggnanandhaa played. So now let's try to understand this position a bit. So in this position, Praggnanandhaa's king is active, the bishop is active, rook is also fairly well placed. There is some tension in the center. Black's knight is a bit passive, so I prefer white's position. But this knight is passive, but at the same time it's controlling these entry squares of the king. There is some tension, so white has to be a bit careful about it. So now, what should white do then in this position? So what should white do is, white should try to create activity where black is a bit weaker. So in this position, we have these two pieces on the king side. Black's king is on the queen side, so queen side is a bit relatively safer. So what we can see from this is that the king side is something where we can put some pressure, and Praggnanandhaa did exactly that. He started with rook f3. Now, Firouzja played d4. This is a pass pawn, and he wants to do something with this. Now, the second move of the position is also very important. So, if you want, you can pause the video here and then try to guess what Praggnanandhaa played. So here, Praggnanandhaa was not worried about this pass pawn, and he played rook takes f6. He just took this pawn. He had of course a plan to deal with this pass pawn, but he was sure that he would be able to capture this pawn and he would get triple connected pass pawns, and that will be enough to get him the winning advantage if he is able to deal with this pass pawn. So now let's see how the game proceeded. So in this position, Prag played rook f7. It's white keeps some of his advantage, but it's not as good as the move e5. But we have to remember the fact that at this point of time, Prag had only 10 seconds left, and this was 33rd move with no increment. So after move 40, the increment would start. So he would have to make 8 moves in next 10 seconds. So it's natural that such inaccuracies can happen. And later on, it was a thriller game, and he had only 1 second left in the position where Firouzja ran out of time and Praggnanandhaa won the game. But just imagine, in such time trouble, he found this really nice idea of rook f3, and he also found that after d4, he can take this pawn and he can stop the pass pawn. So basically, after this, so his main plan, even after rook f7, is at some point to play e5 and then bring the bishop here. So that can be done directly. So for example, d2, bishop c2, capture, and then king takes g5, triple connected pass pawns, too much to handle. So in the game, so here rook f7 check, something like this, 5, and then here also, so white is clearly better, but this knight is getting a bit active. That's why e5 would have been a better move. But as I said, there also clear advantage was there, and here much bigger advantage is there. But yes, that brilliant idea of Praggnanandhaa of rook f3, rook f6, that gave him the victory. So let's go for the next position. So this is white to play here. Now I like white's position because the pieces are clearly actively placed than that of black. White has space advantage because of the pawn on d5. Black has played this f6 move, because of which this bishop has been blocked. The king side has gotten weaker. So now, what should we try to do? How can we try to put more pressure on the opponent? So one thing that you should remember is that every pawn move creates some weaknesses. So now the pawn is not on f7, it is on f6, because of which something has happened. By the way, if you want to attempt this position, you can pause the video here and then try to attempt it. Now, since the pawn is on f6, so this square has become weaker. It is an outpost square. Now, those of you who know the definition of the outpost square, maybe you can put it in comment. So now I'll explain the definition of the outpost square. A square that is attacked by our pawn and cannot be defended by opponent's pawn. So basically that is an outpost square, a stable square for our pieces, and we should try to put our knight on such squares so that we can put a lot of pressure on the opponent. And here we can do so by playing knight d4, and then you can put it on e6, and that will be too much for black to handle, especially with king in the center. So let's go for the next position now. So this is white to play here. Now white's down a pawn here, but before I say further, if you want to attempt this position, you can pause the video and do so. So, but white has the double bishop advantage and black's king is in the center. So those things are good for white, but of course white is on a pawn. So what we should try to do, of course, our aim in general should be to try to play a bit actively. So before opponent is able to castle, we can do something. So what better in that than developing the bishop with a tempo? We are getting the bishop out with a tempo. The queen went back. Now what? So can we do something in this position that can help us in improving a particular piece of ours and also stop black from castling? So yes, we can. Rook c1, bringing the rook on the open file, and castle is not possible because there is bishop c5 idea. Now there can be this, but what if b4? b4 is possible, but there is knight e4. Now bishop c5 has been stopped. So then, okay, but what after rook c1, knight e4? See, it's a piece development move, not a pawn move. So now this rook is on the open file. So another advantage comes, that is queen a4. You are putting pressure on that knight. That is clearly better position for white. So this helps us in putting more pressure on the opponent as their king is in the center. Right. So now let's go for the next position. So this is black to play here. Now it is an opposite side castling middle game. I would say both the kings are weak because white's pawn has gone to g4, black's pawns are on a5, b4. There is some tension in the center, so both kings are not completely safe. But there is, of course, more to this position. So I also noticed that white has strong center because pawns on e5 and d4. So, and it is restricting this bishop. It is restricting this also to a bit of an extent. So this strong center is actually an advantage for white. So whenever your opponent has the strong center, you should always ask yourself, can I do something to break that center of my opponent? Now, if you want to attempt the position, you can try to pause the video and then you can do it. So we have a way to break opponent's center, that is by playing rook takes f2. So the bishop on f2 was defending this pawn. We sacrifice our rook for that and we play this. So the main point here is that after capture, queen takes d4, this is under pressure, this is under pressure, center is broken, the king side has gotten more weaker, our queen has gotten active. So that sacrifice helps us so much. So next time when your opponent's center is strong, look for the ways, sometimes including sacrifices, to break that. Now let's go for the next position. So this is white to play here. So one thing that I clearly notice is that there is this tension in the center, and now say if we exchange it, then the problem what would happen is that, let's say if knight takes d5, the knight gets centralized, this bishop also gets active. So this bishop and knight can get a bit active. Another thing that I notice is that black is trying to capture this pawn. So there is some tension in the center that we have to be careful of. By the way, if you want to attempt this position on your own, you can pause the video and then guess what white should have played. So in this position, if the deep pawn gets exchanged, the bishop and the knight will become active. So what should be our objective? Our objective should be, can we do something to not to let this pawn get exchanged? And there is an idea we can do that. We have to make use of some calculation, a bit of a tactical opportunity to do that. But that's what chess is all about. So we should not take positional play and calculation on tactics in just isolation. In the game, we can make use of both to get the advantage. So here, white has this very nice move, e5, to keep that pawn on d5. So now knight and bishop, they are not that active. But what's the point? Why did you give up our central pawn? So the knight on d7 was defending the c5 bishop, and now it is not doing it. So we get an opportunity to play knight takes e6. And if f takes e6, then bishop takes e5. This bishop is restricted, this knight is restricted, and white is the one with the advantage. So let's have a quick recap of the important points of each position that we discussed. So this position from Prag's game, it was about importance of pass pawn. So he sacrificed the bishop. So but he recognized that he would get triple connected pass pawns, and that would be enough for him to win the game. So try to create as many pass pawns as you can in the end game. This position was about outpost squares. Every pawn move weakens some squares. How to take advantage of that. This one was about putting pressure on the opponent with tempos and developing the pieces. So bishop e3, this was with tempo, this was developing the rook, and if the king is in the center, then be on the alert. This position was actually about strong center of the opponent, and we broke it this time with sacrifice to put pressure in the center and on the king side of the opponent as well. Right. This one was actually about not letting our opponent's pieces get active, and e5 is something that helps us in doing so. So thank you very much for watching the video, and please provide your valuable feedback in the comments. Lastly, don't forget to check chessneurons.com, your go-to platform for improving your positional chess. I will see you in the next video.